participate or receive more information. The seminar will be in 2 sessions. The first, moderated by Sergei Burov, director of the Human Rights House in Chernihiv, Ukraine, followed by a break from 14:20 to 14:30. The second session will be moderated by Professor Emeritus Nuras Feos of Mental Health and Human Rights Information in Oslo and Oslo University. I would now like to talk a little bit about the genesis and aims of the seminar and beyond. I'd first like to mention that the focus is on the practical support to the Ukrainian people in this unjustified and unwarranted war, with the hopes that a lasting and stable peace will be achieved soon for the people of Ukraine. It's worthy of note that approximately 90% of our participants are from Ukraine, and that heartens me a lot. When we talk about veterans and families, we must also remember that the majority of those in uniform in Ukraine were never intended to be soldiers, but were first forced to fight for survival of their families and country by the invasion. Their lives and their families' lives have been disrupted severely, and they need to get back to the life that they wanted to live. We should also remember those who were forced to leave Ukraine and will someday return to a very different environment. In addition, those with physical injuries will have particular requirements. And I would also like to highlight the work that is being done and will need to be continued on children who have been kidnapped to Russian territory. All of these require special and immediate support. This integration of veterans to families and the return of those abroad affects the well-being and mental health of every citizen of Ukraine, and I would argue the global community also. This is why we felt it appropriate to look at the issues from both the practical support that can be provided to the veterans, families, and communities, and also the wider context of reintegration now and in the future. Drawing on the experience in Ukraine and examples from Norway, UK, US, and other nations, no stone should be left unturned in our support, delivering mental health and well-being support benefits to everyone. This also benefits those who are involved in that support, because we all learn about our better natures in providing this kind of support and how to overcome adversity and thrive together. My interest in mental health and well-being started about 40 years ago when I joined the Royal Army Medical Corps and qualified as a psychiatric nurse, supporting our service members and families. However, as a young man, I decided that I wanted something different and transferred to specialist areas of military service and spent the next 25 years in war and conflict zones, as well as in embassies and missions abroad. Following 30 years of service, I served in our Foreign Office, in the United Nations, and in emergency and disaster relief operations around the globe, as well as in the business sector. During all of this, I had my own issues at times and have supported others with theirs on a personal and professional basis, and will continue to do so. Throughout, I've maintained my interest in mental health and the belief that it is the mind that brings the body through not just difficult and traumatic situations, but also has the capacity to restore us to wellness and the ability to enjoy life. We sometimes need support to recognize this and to support others in any way we can so they can do the same. This is what all of us present on this seminar webinar are interested in, are currently doing, and why this seminar was organized to further grow this community in support of the people of Ukraine. So with that said, deepest respect to all who are attending and the panelists and to the departments from the Ukraine government that are with us on this also. And with the deepest respect from all of us, the people of Ukraine, I'll now hand over to Sergey to lead us in a minute's silence and then moderate the first session. Thank you for all those participating and attending.
Дякую, пане Лес Стім. Ми пропонуємо розпочати з хвилини мовчання. Вшанувати пам'ять загиблих захисниць і захисників і захисниць військових і цивільних. Дякуємо
Thank
всім.
you. Thank you all.
Дякую, пане Леслім, ще раз.
Thank you, Mr. Lessim, for your opening remarks. A good day, dear colleagues, dear participants, dear hosts of this webinar. My name is Serhiy Burov. For me, it is a great honor to moderate the first session at this event. I represent the Educational House on Human Rights in Chernihiv. Our core activities are educational programs, training sessions in the field of human rights, and also investigating war crimes. During the wartime, we organize rehabilitation events, and we are in the process to establish the rehabilitation center. And it is one of the reasons why it is so crucial for me to be a member, part of this event, and the moderator, and contribute to it. For those of you who have just joined us, I would like to remind you our household rules. We have two languages, Ukrainian or English. We have interpretation function running, and we have limited time. If you have question, feel free to use our chat or Q&A button, and the hosts of this event encourage you to write your comments and questions in the chat box, and following the webinar you can continue exchanging with other participants and organizers. Before we give floor to our panelists, I would like to remind you that it is essential to comply with the timing requirements, and my objective is to help you with moderating, with watching the timing, and before your time expires 2 minutes before, I will remind you about the timing and that you will have to finish. If you have if you have questions and would like to answer the questions you get from the participants during your presentation, let us know about it and signal us. I would like to give floor to the first speaker, Ms. Olga. She represents Coordination Center on Mental Health from the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, and her topic is experience with the people who have war experience and interaction with them, supporting them. They are hosts, they are organizers of this webinar. I appreciate this opportunity to speak at this event today, and we appreciate all the efforts and all assistance you provide to Ukrainians. Can I share my presentation? Do I need to ask you for permission? You have the permission to share your slides. I will begin by sharing my slides. Today, we are discussing the nationwide mental health program, How Are You? This is the program initiated by the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska. Most of you are familiar with this program, but I would like to briefly describe it. What is the aim of this program? At these crucial times, challenging times, upon initiative of the First Lady Olena Zelenska, we have created the all-Ukrainian program of mental health, How Are You? And this program helps us to start looking for solutions to many challenges we are experiencing. The summit of the First Ladies and Gentlemen resolved that this topic that belongs to the top priority challenges that are of concern for the entire world. The group of young people aged from 18 to 24 turned out to be the group of the population that prioritizes the mental health over other issues. And that is going to remain one of their top priorities for the years to come, between 20 to 40 years. We realized that there was a need to have mental health support. However, the Soviet legacy distorted a little bit the system of mental health and the practitioners working in this field. There was no unity in the mental health system, and the individuals had to seek their own solutions and had to pave the way out to find answers to their questions. And basically, the Soviet system was organized around the principle that it was up to individual to find the individual solution to their mental health problems. But now we are building the entirely new ecosystem of mental health that brings together different stakeholders, authorities, national authorities and municipal authorities, and business companies, communities, international partners, experts, and academia to focus on a human being. And the Coordination Center on Mental Health, established at the Cabinet of Ministers, performs a crucial role of coordinating the activities of multiple stakeholders in this sector. And first of all, we have launched the All-Ukrainian project, How Are You? And the Deputy Minister is responsible for the national program implementation. How Are You? Mental health program. In every region, we have the coordinator of this all-Ukrainian mental health program, and there are 6 consultants in every region responsible for developing the system of mental health services and the mental health support across communities. the law of Ukraine on protection of mental health in Ukraine, system to protect mental health in Ukraine, had been signed by the president, and this law helps us to consolidate our efforts in advancing the mental health services and practitioners, assistant practitioners working in this area. And there are very many needs and requirements. People experience various mental health conditions, anxiety, and disturbed sleep, disturbed emotional state, and the focus of our efforts is to watch very carefully the multitude of different conditions Ukrainians are experiencing and trying to provide reasonable assistance. And we are striving to bring this system of mental health closer to the people. And we are trying to create the new services and bring the mental health support closer to individuals. And our citizens, our communities should know where to turn to when they experience the need in mental health support.
Creating psychological services at various large and small businesses in our country. Of course, it's about the medical care system, establishing mental health centers of cluster and non-cluster hospitals, and whenever the service can be asked for, can be sought. Sometimes even a library can become a space where a person can get the services of mental health. And that then formed a large framework working within the inter-regional coordination. We've got 132 manuals or guides for services that bring together service providers from various spheres and sectors so that a person could be referred to the services they specifically require. And as I said, it is a totally human-centric system. Now, speaking about the veteran policy, and these are the guidelines that I mentioned before. So now services that will respond to the veterans' needs look like this. The How Are You platform quite recently has been transformed into an education platform, which is a place where various useful materials are concentrated. You can get a training on veteran policies, and you can get a certificate for the trainers and for those who are part of the veterans, say families, or they are the first line of contact. We had a huge awareness raising campaign that is called Veterans Experience is Worthy of Respect. And here we can see how to speak to the veterans. And besides, we've got the practical guide, People, Wealth, War Experience, Dignity and Interaction. Could you please show the whole screen mode? Now, I'm afraid that I will not be able to actually switch these slides if I do that. Can't you see it like it is? Yeah, people ask you to unfold it. Okay, I try to do that, but it doesn't seem possible right now. So we added a new section to the barrier-free handbook, which is called People with War Experience, Dignity and Interaction. And in each region, we've got more than 150 trainers trained to deal with veterans, what exactly to pay attention to. We've got a whole series of videos. Oops. I seem to have lost the speaker. Sorry. Yeah, we've lost the speaker, I'm afraid.
Можливо, можна зв'язатися якось з пані Ольгою.
Okay. Can we resume the... Sorry, I've been thrown out of the conference. Now I'm here with you again. And you can see my presentation. No, we can't. Can you please share it again? Okay, bear with me a minute. Well, okay, we've started a bit earlier, so we've got some time. Now, can you see my presentation? Yes, we can. Great. Now, there is also the simulator for the education series, People with War Experience, Dignity, Interaction. So that's a simulator that will offer various situations or scenarios in which you can interact with veterans, men and women, for you to self-assess your possible responses, your behavior. It's an interactive simulator at the DIA education portal, and when you go through certain scenarios, you can opt for a certain option for your behaviors and understand whether it is reasonable or not and whether it will be beneficial to both parties. Most important information, I believe. Shall we go on? Okay, trainings in the regions. As I said before, we have trained more than 150 trainers, and the first line responders were also trained, more than 7,000 people, how to talk to, how to behave around the war veterans. And quite recently, a couple of weeks ago, we launched a training program called Peer-to-Peer, and it will start being implemented in a week from now. It covers the long way of cooperation with the San Diego University, with the support of the Kiev National Taras Shevchenko University. We had several visits to various countries together with the veterans, where they were trained how to work with psychological trauma in veterans and prisoners of war, with a special focus to peer-to-peer approach. After that, we provided supervisory support to all of the team members, and that was the first group of trainers. Then we had a series of visits to Washington, D.C., and then to California University in San Diego, where we had to talk to the local veterans and learn from their first-hand experience. Not only do they work in NGOs or in the civic sector, but they are also part of the teams in medical institutions where they cooperate with the medical doctors, well, psychologists, and they respond to the needs of the veterans, thus contributing to a better reintegration of the veterans. And the very last session we had in Uzhgorod in 2025, it was a group of trainers specifically selected from amongst veterans, military psychologists who worked with those released from captivity. And we also invited some of the lecturers from the Kiev Taras Shevchenko National University University who developed the curriculum. So not only, they know that theoretically, but they've also gained some practice of being with, around and talking to the veterans. So that was a joint experience for a year. We've been talking to one another, sharing experiencing, understanding how to move ahead. As a result, we've got a totally new peer-to-peer training system that leans on the experience and expertise acquired over that time. So we now have the 27 veterans representing all of the regions of the country, and they will start their training in May. I would like to thank the Ministry of Veterans Affairs for the financial support. They provided their support to the program for the veterans. I will tell you a bit about this principle. It has become very popular in the country, but sometimes people misunderstand the very essence of it. Sometimes people say that a person who has been affected by the war or had a 2-week course somewhere online would be seen as an expert in peer-to-peer support. It's not true, frankly speaking. You can see this iceberg, and the tip is what you do when you talk to your trainees. But the rest of the underwater part of the iceberg is about your knowledge, about building empathy and trust, about being trained by trained specialists, know how to manage stress, how to work with addictions, how to handle social aspects, how to lean on the veterans' experiences without re-traumatizing them. So why is it about peer-to-peer? It's about those who have their own active combat experience and specific training. And one of the specificities is to reduce this stigma when it comes to seeking mental health assistance. So we want to increase opportunities for the veterans. We would like to encourage them to establish new relations, new friendships, and since it is peer-to-peer, we saw how it works in the hospitals of California, where the consultant veteran who is a trainer in peer-to-peer support training will be cooperating with a group of medical doctors and approach veterans, thus building up trust in the veterans to the medical staff, and they work with the families. They do not leave the families behind, and they thus instill hope and cover the entire trajectory of treatment together. So a couple of words about do's and don'ts when it comes to the peer-to-peer experts. I will tell you about what the specialists should not do. They should not provide psychotherapeutic assistance. They should not try to replace the psychologist or therapeutic experts. They act as the people who can help the veteran walk through the entire trajectory of reintegration and recovery. So we speak about certain boundaries, and this should be a specifically trained expert. This training lasts for 4 months online. So it takes time and practical qualifications. So what they should do is promote the creation of self-help groups, share own stories of recovery, pay special attention to the families. And now next steps, we are thinking of introducing a new specialty or occupation, peer-to-peer counselor to the classifier of professions, then of creating a professional standard for the profession, and we will have to create jobs for peer-to-peer experts. Where can they be engaged? In any sector that you saw in my slide 3 of the ecosystem. Those can be public institutions, rehabilitation centers, resilience centers, veteran hubs, businesses that would employ veterans to reintegrate them better. So any sphere, anywhere in the country where the peer-to-peer consultant can be employed. So you can see more information on our website, and here are the QR codes that you can scan and get to our web page and our Facebook page and other very useful links. So please join our team of consummate professionals. Should you have questions, I would be glad to answer them. Thank you, Olga. We still have some time for questions, and we do have questions in the chat, how one can get to this program or to this training program. So there are criteria for selection or eligibility criteria. You have to be the war veteran. In order to implement this peer-to-peer principle, you should have at least the bachelor degree in any sphere. The first pilot group was selected through the divisions for Veterans Affairs in the regions. Once the first pilot group is trained and we look at the program, we analyze it critically, we see what needs to be changed, what needs to be added, etc. So we will hear about the feedback from the trainees and the trainers from San Diego University. Then we will think of inviting the next groups. And I think that we will try to expand this program to be taught at more universities, and then it will be totally open in terms of accession. Thank you. I think we'll be moving on. You can be asking questions or continue to asking questions, and at a later stage, we will actually send them to the speakers as necessary. Thank you, Olga, for a very detailed description of the system that is being developed in Ukraine. Foreign countries' experience is also extremely important for Ukraine and Ukrainians, and I would like to add to the participants that some of you cannot see the microphone or a camera. You can't unmute your microphone. You can only talk to us in the chat box because this is the format of the webinar, and we've got lots of people participating right now. So we are thankful for your understanding. So please place your questions in the Q&A section or in the chat box. The materials of this webinar will be published or sent to you. If I am wrong, my colleagues will correct me. Thank you very much again, and I will be glad to give the floor to Lieutenant Colonel Arnstein Hanses from Norwegian Armed Forces Veterans Center, and he will be speaking about veteran work in Norway and the Veterans Center. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. As I said, my name is Arnstein Hanses, working in the Norwegian Armed Forces Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm the chief of the Norwegian Armed Forces Veterans Center. I would like to start. Am I muted or can you hear me? Can you hear me? Good. I would like to express my gratitude for the invitation to share with you how we in Norway work with the recognition and care of veterans and their families. As a veteran myself, having served in international operations in Kosovo, Syria, and Lebanon, I bring a personal perspective to this topic. With nearly 40 years of service in the Norwegian Armed Forces and the last 17 years dedicated to veteran care at the Norwegian Veteran Center, I would like to emphasize that my profession is that of a military officer, not a doctor or a psychologist. Therefore, my knowledge on veteran care is primarily based on my experience during my service. This year marks the 80th anniversary of Norway's liberation after 5 years of war and occupation by Nazi Germany. Although it has been a long time since then, there are still individuals and families who to this day are affected by the events that took place 80 years ago. Even though there are few surviving veterans from the war, many families continue to be impacted. The memory of a traumatized father or a grandfather whose injuries contributed to the destruction of their close relationship still lingers. I believe it's essential to consider this time perspective when examining how long wars and conflicts affect communities and individuals. Therefore, providing good and targeted support for veterans and their families is a long-term project. If a society fails to acknowledge this, it will not only lead to suffering for individuals, but also incur significant cost for the community in the form of prolonged suffering that can become a burden on society. Next slide, please. So this is the big picture for Norway. We are a small nation with only 5 million people, but after the Second World War, 120,000 Norwegians have been serving in over 100 operations abroad in 40 countries on 4 continents. Next, please. So we estimate that we today have approximately 60,000 veterans which are alive. Next slide, please. So what is our focus? The main focus is honor and recognition to all and support for those who need it. We believe that recognition for veterans and their families is one of the most important things we can do to prevent long-term mental health issues. The Norwegian Armed Forces have a strong focus on this area. When it comes to treating those who are injured, we have chosen a model in Norway where the civilian healthcare system is responsible for providing treatment. Similarly, it is the civilian support system that ensures veterans who are injured and unable to work receive their rightful benefits from the Norwegian welfare system. This means that the armed forces must inform the civilian support system about the unique challenges faced by veterans and their families. Therefore, the Department of Veteran Affairs works closely with the civilian support system to raise awareness about the challenges veterans face. Next slide, please. So the principal task of the Department of Veteran Affairs is to lead, coordinate, and oversee the armed forces work with regards to the recognition, support, and following up and care for the nation's veterans. This is done in cooperation with other governmental agencies, the National Health System, Social and Labor Service, as well as counties and municipalities. Next slide, please. The tasks are to be responsible for the Armed Forces follow-up program for veterans, pre, during, and post-deployment. The Armed Forces Veteran Center, and awarding medals and decoration, which are very important. Cooperation with the government and civilian agency and other parties with regards to veterans recognition, support, and care. We also manage the subsidy scheme for veteran organizations, and we have a lot of jubilees, commemoration, and events. Our experience is that many veterans with mental health issues do not inform their civilian general practitioner about their background as soldiers. Sometimes this is due to pride and soldier identity, and it's not certain that veterans connect their challenges to their service. This lack of information can lead to doctors treating physical symptoms without referring them to adequate mental health treatment. Norwegian research on our Afghanistan veterans shows that approximately 10 to 12% will develop anxiety-related disorders due to their service, such as mild depressions, sleep problems, muscle and skeletal issues, and similar conditions. About 2.5% of these will be diagnosed with PTSD. These are conditions that can be treated if we understand the background. Therefore, we emphasize informing soldiers about normal reactions to abnormal experiences. We also work with soldier culture to create openness around such issues, so there is a low threshold for seeking help as early as possible. We see that those who go untreated for a longer period without receiving treatment, help and support become chronically ill, and rehabilitation is then much more difficult. Information to families and social network is therefore crucial, as they are often the first to notice warning signs and can influence the veteran to seek professional help. Norwegian research has shown that those who leave the armed forces after their international service have an 8 times greater risk of developing mental health challenges than those who continue their service. The opportunity to talk about their experience with like-minded individuals is crucial in preventing these challenges. Therefore, voluntary veteran associations and contact with the armed forces after service are important preventive factors. We have many different voluntary veteran associations in Norway that receive financial support from the armed forces to work with veteran gatherings and buddy support in various municipalities. Next slide, please. In addition, we have the Armed Forces Veteran Center where I work. We offer a low-threshold recreational facility to all our veterans and their closest relatives. This is a place with hotel standards where you can enjoy good food, a range of leisure activities, and the opportunity to meet like-minded individuals, relax, feel taken care of, and recognized. Here, veterans are treated as guests. We have approximately 15,000 overnight stays per year. The goal is to be a gathering point for veterans as a thanks for the service they have performed, regardless of whether they are injured or not. However, we will always prioritize our injured veterans first. We do not provide treatment, but many of our injured veterans feel relief after staying at the center. We have close contact with the civilian healthcare system, military psychologists, voluntary veterans organizations, and the civilian support system throughout Norway. With our knowledge of veteran care and the military and civilian support system, we provide counseling to veterans and families so that they can get information on where to seek help for their challenges. Next slide, please. So this is how we are organized. And we are a military organization with military and uniform leadership, precisely to emphasize that the armed forces recognize their efforts and that our veterans will always be our soldiers. We take care of our own. Next slide, please. Here are some pictures from the surroundings and the activities we can do. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. How do we work? We have medal ceremonies and recognition. We have a lot of events. We have a very good kitchen. We have facilities for physical training and activities. We have clerical service with a military chaplain. We have light medical services with a military nurse. And we have post-service social adaptation done by a social worker. And of course, we have cross-sector knowledge. And the most important, having a heart for our veterans. We believe that holistic approach to recognition, caretaking, and following up of veterans is important. Since 2006, Norway has developed its veterans policy and support for veterans and their families. We do not have a perfect system, and there is still room for improvements. Based on our experiences, I will summarize some key points that I personally believe are crucial for supporting veterans. Next slide, please. A comprehensive veteran policy, anchored and funded at the national level, with a primary focus on recognition and gratitude across all aspects of society. Evidence-based intervention and medical treatment, ensuring that all measures and treatments are grounded in research.
2 хвилинки.
Close cooperation between military and civilian support system. Collaboration is essential for providing holistic support. Focus on the veteran families, recognizing them as the most important support pillars for veterans. Promoting openness about mental health challenges. The military must work to create an environment where soldiers feel comfortable discussing their mental health issues, thereby lowering the threshold for seeking professional help. Early intervention significantly improves outcomes. And last but not least, developing buddy support system in cooperation with voluntary veteran organizations to provide additional layers of support. Thank you for your presentation, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Дуже дякуємо, пане Ернстейн.
Glory to heroes. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Arnstein. Your experience and your support is crucial for us. I remind our participants that you can write your questions in the chat because we won't have sufficient time for direct live communication with you and answering all your questions. And we receive question to Mr. Arnstein about this topic, restart technology, and I believe that our participants would like to discuss this topic further outside of this webinar. We would like to give a floor to Mr. Mike Baskin, PhD, Resilience Group Adaptation and Development, and the care from the point of view of a veteran system and experience of the United States.
Okay, good afternoon. Just looked at Sergey. Can you hear me? Just like yeah. Okay, great. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I want to acknowledge the service and sacrifice of the Ukrainian military and veteran community, as well as the support and sacrifice of the Ukrainian people. So it's a privilege to share a little bit of what we've learned in the United States, and also acknowledge that our experience is different, and in many ways Ukraine has compressed our learning of 5, 10, 15 years into 1 or 2 years. And I also like to acknowledge the Norwegian presentation. Some of those last pieces were very informative and well said. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I went to the Army's college. We call it the United States Military Academy at West Point. So I went from high school into the college and then graduated as an infantry officer. September 11th happened my senior year of college. So how the world shifted, for at least for the United States, was significant at that time. I spent a year in Afghanistan from April 2004 to April 2005, went back to the US, did some courses and training, moved to a different unit, and went to Iraq late 2006 for all of 2007, early 2008. While I was in Iraq, I just mentioned I did a suicide investigation. That informs my viewpoint, or at least some of my experiences later in life. After I got out of the military in 2008, then post 9/11 GI Bill, I'll talk about that briefly. Basically, I was able to get a master's and a PhD with the support of the Department of Veterans Affairs and this post 9/11 GI Bill. I went in, I was an academic fellow in government. I created several programs. One is called Solar Ready Vets. You see me with President Obama. That was when he announced it. This was a program to, as you got out of the military, to get renewable energy training in solar, to then go right into a job. And so I just mentioned that as we found that this was a new authority to allow people getting out of the military while they were still in to get job training, which was something new. We didn't have that before 2014, 2015. So they were still in the military, but it was their last 3 months and they could get some new civilian training. I then worked for the First Lady's Joining Forces Initiative. I believe the First Lady of Ukraine has her own initiative right now, and there's a very similar approach. I'll share a little bit about that. I also created an internship program. When our Congress passed the post 9/11 GI Bill, over 1 million veterans started going to university. And so, like any other undergraduate or graduate student, they were looking for an internship. And so, something I'll highlight here is that when there were gaps created, we tried to create programs that fill the gaps, just like the first presentation already today. Today, I work as a consultant and a holistic counselor. And on the bottom left of the screen is when I was in Afghanistan, 24 years old, trying to settle a tax dispute between the town that didn't want to pay their taxes and the governor's tax collectors. So that was one of the many hats I wore in Afghanistan. Okay, I'm going to go big on this. And the reason I go macro is because our demographics inform veterans care and the veterans community today. So there are 18 million veterans in the US today. However, that number goes down about 250,000 a year. We expect it to flatten out at 14 million a year in 2035 because we had a much bigger military during the Korean War and Vietnam War. So our population is older. 50% are older than 65 years old. 73% are older than 50. And so our population, we have a smaller military than we had 20 years ago. And so I share this because the demographics of every country, the size of their military will influence the size of their veteran population and their programs. In contrast to the Norwegian example that came up before, we have two separate government departments. We have a Department of Defense, which is our military basically, and our Department of Veterans Affairs, which is its own separate department. The United States used to have conscription until 1973, and then it moved to an all-volunteer force. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the United States reduced its military in half. It went from about 2.3 million active duty to 1.3 million active duty. I mentioned the all-volunteer force because each of our branches, the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, now the Space Force, and the Coast Guard, recruit our citizens, and they have different cultures. And so people go into the military and then they go out of the military back into whether they stay near the military base, whether they move to the state they were from, or whether they move somewhere else. We also, half of our military is stationed outside the United States. Korea, Japan, Germany, Italy. Some of this is from the post-World War II era. And so my point is that veterans or transitioning service members can be very far from where they grew up. And so reintegration looks very different based on literally where you go move. I think the Ukraine experience will be different. It's a smaller country, but also because the war is on home territory. But my point is that where home is very subjective. It's different by country, by experience. Then lastly, this is a term that we created called transitioning service members. This is people in their last 6 months of their military window. In 2003, we didn't pay that much attention. Now there's a lot on these transitioning service members known as TSMs, what information they get. There was always a program, but connecting them, there's a lot of connectivity in their experience now that didn't happen in the same way. So about 200,000 people go into the veteran population a year from the military. I just acknowledge this is a picture I took in Warsaw in March 2022 after the 2022 Russian invasion kicked off. So this is an example. Our military is, I think, much younger than the Ukrainian military. So they're all, in their junior 20s, and they make up the diversity of the United States as well. I won't go into these in depth. There's a lot of research on the U.S. veterans community by think tanks, academic institutions. So I'll just acknowledge the graph on the right is that in the late 80s, 80% of our Congress, our House of Representatives, and our Senate had military experience. Now it's much lower. And so I would not be surprised for future leaders in Ukraine to be obviously veterans, but how laws and how the legislation takes shape is influenced by representation. So that voice may not be as heard as clearly. There may be a more of a separation in the United States. Our military is much smaller and less people have military experience than 30, 40 years ago. Okay, our Department of Veterans Affairs is a large organization. It has 400,000 employees. Its budget has doubled since 2009, 2010 or so. So our programs have increased, but there are questions today of our fiscal health. And so will the budget stay at that level? It's to be determined. The budget today is $300 billion, which is a significant sum of money. But it's a little bit of a nuance. Only half of our veteran community is actually registered with the Department of Veterans Affairs. So where did all those other people go? They lost connecting somehow in the system, whether they chose to not get involved, whether something happened. Half of our 18 million veterans are actually registered with our Department of Veterans Affairs use the benefits. Our Veterans Health Administration, Veterans Benefits, two different parts of the organization. I'll talk a little bit about the VHA. We have a huge medical system. It's the largest integrated healthcare system in the United States. It's from our Department of Veterans Affairs. 172 hospitals, over 1,000 care sites across the country. If you go to a big city, you'll find one. If you go to a rural part of the United States, there'll be one available with a region around it. I put the link in here. I'll put it in the chat. Or if I can ask one of the administrative folks to put the link from the evidence-based treatments from the slideshow into the chat. The VA clarifies what evidence-based treatments it uses. I'll also note that it has a heavy research agenda. It funds research, clinical trials, and a lot of our doctors in training spend time, civilian doctors in training spend time at the VA. It's also very much partners with university medical centers. Over time, DoD and the VA adapted to the challenges. In 2004, 5, 6, traumatic brain injury and PTSD, these were new areas. So the medical community responded as the medical community in Ukraine has today. That learning can be very intense. You also get into how you share knowledge and best practices, and can that be scaled in a national manner? I just note today, it's just a contemporary note that the Trump administration is changing the ability to use federal telework. And so the VA hired a large amount of mental health clinicians in the last several years, and they were using remote work or telework. And now that is under question of whether they'll still be able to do that. And so literally there's articles right now that the VA doesn't have enough office space available for the counselors. So non-VA, there are things that the VA doesn't really play a central role in, at least to my experience and knowledge. So some of the retreat space, the VA does not play a central role in. Equine therapy with horses, art therapy. There has been a psychedelic organizations focused on veterans that have grown up. The VA just sponsored a pilot regarding psychedelics. So I'm putting a lot of information in a short period of time, but the post 9/11 GI Bill was passed in 2008 by our Congress. This opened up higher education to all veterans who served after September 11th, 2001. And so we had this flood of veterans going into universities. The universities may not have had programs that were ready for them. So the student veterans organized. Now there's a student veteran organization, nationally, Student Veterans of America. It's just an association that provides training to the chapters. The First Lady launched her Joining Forces initiative in 2011. And I note that there's a whole person concept here: education, employment, and health. So, and it's a part of the nonprofit sector, the private sector, and the government working together as a recognition that government cannot do it by itself. I put when some of these nonprofits have been founded. Veteran Yoga Project started in 2011. It continues to this day. It's flourishing. It's online yoga classes now. It has a relationship with the VA. Headstrong, founded by one of my West Point classmates, they decided that the VA wasn't responding fast enough. They organized clinicians across the United States. If you wanted an individual session with a clinician, confidential, no cost, you could sign up through Headstrong. So there's been a growth in veteran service organizations. There's the traditional ones, maybe that my dad belongs to. And then there's newer ones. Newer ones maybe were quick to set up apps, maybe use online resources. When I was in the Army, Facebook didn't really exist at that time. Now there's Facebook groups, all these kinds of things of how we connect. Business got involved with hiring commitments. And the first ladies, when I worked for her, there was enlisting companies to make a hiring commitment to hire veterans. I can mention the Avalon Action Alliance, a number of nonprofits working together. It's kind of a trendsetter right now in alternative health and therapy right now. Within companies, employee resource groups, how veterans organize within a company, just to say, hey, we're an employee resource group. We want to be organized. Maybe we get together for lunch once a month. Entrepreneurship programs, we know that U.S. veterans have a higher rate of entrepreneurship. I was fortunate to attend one at Stanford for a month, an amazing experience. I launched several programs based on that entrepreneurship training. Last three I'll mention, Team Red, White, and Blue, Community Fitness and Wellness, created by another West Point classmate. Mission Continues, created for community service. And Team Rubicon, focused on taking military skills in disaster response. So a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, education, employment, and health all together is kind of a component of our U.S. experience. I put all those themes up top: initiative, legislation, partnerships, service, transitions, whole person in the family. So I'll stop there. I know it's a limited amount of time. I'm happy to go more in depth. I hope the link for the evidence-based therapies on the VA is available, and I'll take our cue from the moderators. I've spoken fast to try to get it all in a short amount of time. So thanks for your time.
Дуже дякуємо, пан Майк.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Not only did you manage to be within the time limits, you still have time to answer questions. And I would like to ask Einstein, just I took some of your time, and now we have several minutes for you to answer questions or for Tim. So perhaps we will do it like this. A question to Mr. Armstein, and people can continue asking questions in the chat of Mr. Busking. Lieutenant Colonel, will you read the questions in the chat, or shall I?
Please read them, so I can see if I have any answer.
Так, ну, перше питання було
Question one was about the restart program, saying that that's a very good modification or adjusted to Norwegian sessions. Do you have anything like this for the Norwegian veterans in terms of PTSD management, etc.?
When it comes to the medical and treatment, we are not dealing with that at the Veteran Center. That will be the psychologists which are dealing with. So we don't use that restart program on our veterans, because that will be seen as a kind of treatment, and we are not supposed to do treatment. That shall be done by the medical services.
Mm-hmm.
It was also a question about Ukrainian veterans being coming to Norway, and if we are able to support them in Norway. I saw that question. And for the start, every foreigners coming to Norway is going to be taken care of in the municipalities. So the question if the Veteran Center can support the Ukrainian veterans in Norway, will my answer be is that my mission is to support Norwegian veterans. Questions regarding supporting Ukrainian veterans in Norway are a political question, and that should be discussed between the officials in Ukraine and Norway. I'm not going into any political questions like that is. So if that is a need, I think the Ukrainian authorities should take that with the Norwegian authorities.
Дякую. Можливо,
Okay,
я
thank you.
також не всі запитання бачу, але
I might
я
not
бачу,
see all of the
що у
questions,
відповідь
but
на
I
вашу
see that in
презентацію,
response to your presentation,
зазначається те, що
several people stated
важливо
that
визнати, що члени родин
it's
військовослужбовців
essential to
також
recognize
мають
that the
власний унікальний досвід, пов'язаний
family
з
members of the
службою,
military have
вони
unique
практикують
experience
на
related to trauma, and they do need training in providing care and providing interventions. If I've okay, any response to that?
Yeah, of course, the families, as I said, is the most important pillar of support for the veterans. So that is the reason when veterans come here, they also bring their families here. So the families having meeting each other, having a network, and also we give information to the families. It's very important because, as I said in my presentation, it's often the families who identify the problems first. So education of the families, when we're sending troops abroad, we give information and training to the soldiers, but we also give information to the families, what they can expect. And also, so the family is extremely important. And the recognition to the family is also very important. So every year here in the Veteran Center, we have a youth camp for children or veterans from 12 to 15 years to gather them here as a recognition for their service as a child of a veteran. And also so these children can join together in a network. So I totally agree. If you don't recognize the family and you don't support the family and educate the families, we will not be able to follow up our veterans.
Дякую. І якщо я не помиляюсь,
Thank
ви
you.
відповіли на питання про те,
And I think you've also answered the question about the opportunities for the Ukrainian veterans to get rehabilitation services in Norway. And you said that it's up to the Ukrainian government to negotiate that with the Norwegian one. But there's a question, is there any prospect for the mental and physical rehabilitation for the Ukrainian veterans staying in Norway now with the engagement of Ukrainian psychologists?
I don't know if I understand the question. Can you please repeat the question?
Будь ласка.
Чи можна залучати українських психологів?
The question is, can Ukrainian psychologists be invited to provide rehabilitation services to Ukrainian veterans who are currently staying in Norway?
Yeah, I can't see any problems with that. I know that the Norwegian armed forces are going to train Ukrainian psychologists. I think the program is ongoing as a part of support Ukrainian armed forces. But again, all these things about the support in Norway must be clarified by the authorities. So I think if that's a request from Ukraine, send that request to Norwegian authorities, and I know there is a great will to support with everything we can. It's not because this is very high up on the Norwegian agenda.
Дуже дякуємо. Ніби я не бачу більше коментарів.
Thank you. I can't see any other questions to Ornstein. to you, Lieutenant Colonel, sir. If you wish to add anything, you can do it right now. But if not, then we will ask questions of Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Дякую. Будь ласка, шановні учасники і учасниці, у вас є можливість поставити
Now,
запитання.
dear participants, you've got an opportunity to ask questions of Michael.
Можемо ще одне питаннячко поставити. Ще одне питання до Арнстейн. Чи є якісь організації, з якими українська громада може
Now, there's another
зв'язатися або
question
співпрацювати,
to
якщо у вас є
Ornstein.
спеціальні
Do you have any information about the organizations for Ukrainians in are there any organizations with which Ukrainian communities could liaise and cooperate?
Not in my knowledge, but I don't know everything what's happening around in the municipalities where the Ukrainians live. But they are being treated as rest of the Norwegian in the Norwegian welfare system, so they have the same rights as every other citizen in the municipalities. But I'm not aware of any such organizations, my knowledge at least.
Дуже дякуємо ще раз.
Thank you very much.
Дякуємо. І тоді до пана Майкла.
Thank you. There is one comment directed to Mike. Michael, it is important to recognize that there are huge changes in important to recognize the drastic changes occurring within our VA healthcare system, major personnel program and facilities all focused on promoting the concept of community care, turning clinical care to the private sector. Interestingly, the same philosophy is being considered with regard to the military healthcare system, closing facilities and moving care to the community. They are not just program changes, rather they represent a very different understanding and appreciation of care. Thank you for your answer and for your presentation, they say. Okay.
So I'll just
Your
comment
response?
briefly. Yeah, so in general, veterans issues in the United States have been bipartisan, meaning Democrat and Republicans together have found cooperation and alignment in the veteran space. What I think this comment is referring to is that the Republican Party of the United States traditionally has tried to privatize more functions, whereas the Democratic Party has aligned more with a stronger government role. And so the Trump administration is doing things very differently than the Biden administration. And so there are questions about if the government, and specifically the Department of Veterans Affairs, will retain its capabilities or whether that should be outsourced more to the private sector. I won't go into that, except I'll share that wait times to getting veteran care, to getting care was a contentious issue for a while, meaning I would like to get a mental health appointment, but if I have to wait 2 months for it, how good is it to me? And so data and metrics are relevant to advocate for more resources to expand a program or reduce it. And so wait times becomes, what is the wait time? I just share that because the data will, if you have an idea, and even the question that went to my Norwegian colleague, this would be an example that 15 years ago, American, like veterans would say, we need to create an effort for this. We'll create a program where Ukrainian clinicians in Europe, because of the population movement and the refugee situation, will give mental health support to Ukrainians either in Norway or in Ukraine. They'll just do it and create an organization, do it in alignment, and then the government may or may not catch up several years later. So solving problems is, if there's an opportunity to make something improve it. Part of the, some people say you ask permission, some people say you ask forgiveness. Sometimes there's a let's just do it. That comes down to more leadership and organization and passion sometimes, and continuity than anything else. So I just share that.
Дякуємо, пане Майкле. І у нас
Thank
є
you,
трошки
Michael.
часу ще залишається.
And we still have some time for discussion, and we can go back to Olga. Should you have any questions to Olga, you can continue asking them.
Написала свої контакти.
Olga left her contacts in the chat box, so should you need to contact her, you can do that. I've got only one question asked of Olga: how to join the training program for this peer-to-peer initiative. You might be seeing this in the chat yourself, Olga. If you're with us, what would you say?
Я перепрошую, це, напевно, до мене, да, було?
Yeah, this is a question asked of me, right? Yes, if you could repeat it, I will be glad to answer that. There's a question from a person who would like to join the training program that you've mentioned, Olga. Yes, I provided my contact as well as my telephone number, so you can contact me. We've got now the first pilot group, and the second group and all subsequent groups will be selected at a later stage, and this training will be offered by more universities. So I think that the access would be easier then. So as matters stand, we've selected this first group through the coordination center, and you have to have patience for some time so that more places are available within that group. Now it is available only from Kyiv Taras Shevchenko State National University, but at a later stage, as I said, these groups will be formed in different cities of Ukraine. Thank you very much. My very last question to our foreign colleagues, because after the break we will all be speaking about Ukrainian experiences. We now see that in the society we have the tensions growing over the responses, sometimes aggressive, by the veterans. So the question to both gentlemen: in your countries, is there experience of communicating to the society the ways to respond to such aggressive behavior by the veterans, and what is being done to somehow mitigate those? Michael? Understand?
I was going to say I'll defer to Norway first, but
This is the question to Michael. Okay. Or I suggest
Shall we
we ask
start with
Mr.
Arnstein
Arnstein
then?
to answer it.
Can you please repeat the question?
What efforts are taken in case if there are situations of no respect toward the veterans? If someone expresses disregard toward the veterans, in your countries, do you have specific practices or procedures? What happens, how you deal with such situations when someone ignores the veterans or shows no respect toward the veterans and their traumatic experience, for instance?
No, we have the most important we do, the armed forces do, is to spread the information about what the veterans have been done for Norway. been a very important pillar for our foreign policy, and spread information about the operations we are involving in. And I think there is a great respect for the veterans' efforts. So, but in Norway we have free speech. So if people say anything disrespectful, then it's not much we can do. But I will say that the Norwegian population have a great respect for the veterans. Yeah.
Дуже дякую. Дякую. Пані Мікель.
Thank you very much.
So I'll share just briefly about a program that I have not gone through myself, but is known as Veterans Treatment Courts. And so there is a practice, I'm not sure how widespread, I'm aware of it, I haven't been to it, but when a veteran has committed a minor break of the law, they can go before what's known a veteran court, and it basically offers something that we would call generally maybe more of a, instead of going to prison, you could go to a more of a treatment plan. And so there are judges that have this. Let me see if I can put it in the chat. So it's a different style of dealing with basically somebody having either significant challenges or acting up. I would distinguish that, versus doing something that basically like armed robbery or using a weapon against, like there's clearly a difference maybe in maybe substance abuse or than maybe violent crimes. I don't know if that's helpful. It's just, I would also say that from maybe a more holistic standpoint, that person is suffering at some level. There's something coming out of them that is being acted out, or violence against others, something about some wound or some sort of challenge that they're experiencing. Now, they may not have the time and capacity and support on the street or in some other situation to really break that down. That's where I personally believe some of the deeper retreat options can be tremendously helpful to mitigate those kinds of events before they happen. I don't know if that's helpful in this specific instance. Yes, you have people that have, I also say we have a spectrum of veterans. You have people that come into the military with all kinds of experiences in their lives, and they go out of the military with experiences in their lives, myself included. And so at some ways, we have to talk about that individual person in addition to the community-wide attributions and labels that we provide. So there's a little bit of like tactical, like how do we interact with each person? And then there's like the strategic, like, I don't want to say a bumper sticker, but the overarching themes that we pick up. And so always balancing that, I think, comes down to any kind of care, any kind of community, but is especially a part of the veteran experience. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's the best I can offer today.
Дуже дякуємо. Дуже дякуємо, шановні колеги.
Thank you very, very much, dear colleagues, Ms. Olga, Mr. Arnstein, and Mr. Michael. Thank you for your excellent presentations. I apologize. We have exceeded our time, and now we have to make a short break. And we will have the second session that will be moderated by Ms. Nora Sveas. I suggest we meet in 10 minutes. 15:35 Ukrainian time, 35 minutes. Thank you once again, and see you in 9 minutes. Don't be late.
and mental health and human rights info. We will continue the second session with focusing on soldiers, veterans, and their families, the psychological health, and all the challenges involved. And I think I will want to phrase what Les also said in the beginning. This is a challenging and a very important work, but it is a work towards the future. And in many ways, I think we can say that working with the veterans, with communities, with the family is also a way of doing peace work. So we hope that these, during the second session today, we will have some more examples and some experiences based on projects, psychosocial initiatives to help both the soldiers themselves, their families, and the community to heal and to deal with what has happened. So we will have 8 different presentations. So they will be shorter than the ones that we've had so far, but we do hope that you can enter your comments or questions in the chat and see how we manage to reply to these. So to start, and I'm very proud and very pleased to start with you, Yuri Osovich. You are, first of all, you are the chair of the Ahalar Center of the board, and you have been working for many years on psychosocial work with people who have been refugees both inside the country and outside, and also affected by the war, also in training and education programs. I'm especially happy because you are one of our oldest collaborators in Ukraine for the mental health and human rights info. So I'm pleased now again to introduce you and your presentation on your experiences with the veteran soldiers and the psychosocial initiatives. So the floor is yours, and you can enter your first PowerPoint.
Дякую, Нора. Добрий день,
Thank you,
шановні
Nora.
колеги.
Good day, dear colleagues and dear participants. I will launch my presentation on the screen.
Чи видно?
Can you see it?
Видно, чутно? Угу.
Can you see it? Can you hear me?
Для мене сьогодні велика честь.
For me, it is a great honor to be with you today and to speak at this webinar. Thank you once again, dear Nora, for this opportunity. We have been cooperating earlier, and it is a great pleasure for me, and it's a very special experience. I would like to introduce our center Ahalar. We started our work back in 1994, and now we are focusing at providing support to the military in the field of mental health. And we serve a role model to other community organizations, to other NGOs, what a small organization can do. We, together with our Norwegian colleagues and our Georgian colleagues, we conduct various programs in the field of mental health. At the beginning, we did such programs for helpers, but since the outbreak of the full-scale invasion, we expanded our target audiences to involve the militaries and the families of the military and the veterans and helpers. So we cover broad groups of the population. Why have we chosen those groups of people? Following the beginning of the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation to Ukraine, we raised the question, how can we help those who are helping others? How can we help the members of the military families and the veterans' families, those who are providing direct assistance to the to the military people and to those who are at the edge of acute pain and going through a very challenging experience.
But it is these people who work for themselves and help other people to cope. So their experience and their contribution is invaluable because they run the risk of psychological, mental, and physical burnout. They often face secondary traumatization. They can suffer from PTSD and they have to cope with their own loss and that of others. So people who we work with face huge psychosocial issues that were exacerbated by the war. And judging from our own experience, we came up with this taxonomy of psychosocial challenges. It's high level of anxiety and fatigue. Then chronic fatigue and burnout, the stress, burden, and exhaustion of resources. Life in war undermines the psychological and mental stability. Then there is loss of mental senses. A lot of people lose this sense of aim, of purpose, because their pre-war life has been disrupted, sometimes destroyed, and they lose orientation in their life. They see it as impossible to return to the past, to their usual way of life, because of the social, economic, political, and environmental changes. And last but not least, something that actually affects people's mental health immensely is the trauma and because of losses and losses themselves. As a result, an individual is incapable of going out of this state, and then they lack knowledge for self-help. Oftentimes, people don't know how to cope with these challenges, how to stand up to them, nor do they have access to the necessary support. So what do we do about it? In order to resolve these issues, we've developed a comprehensive approach, bringing together online and offline programs that help people restore their own resources and their resilience. These programs have three major areas of activities: restorative retreats in the Carpathian Mountains, then the online course, The ABC of Self-Regulation, and individual psychotherapy sessions and consultations or counseling. These programs were established so that the participants could reduce the stress and anxiety levels. They could find new resources and supports, both internal and external, and could recover in a safe and supportive environment. What did we lean on in developing such programs that pursue such aims? So we analyze the expectations of the participants. We asked them what was important for them. So I'll start from the very beginning. Then the retreats are called Body Resources Balance. They are in the core of our work. Why are they important? They are unique in that they bring together an international team of experts from Ukraine, Poland, Norway, and the USA. Sometimes when they can come, they do. then it's a unique combination of the nature of wonderful environment, safe place where people can get relaxed, they can de-stress, and they can feel secure. Then it is an opportunity to have very good nutrition, very tasty food, and then the people can have some breathing space, some safe space, so that they can rebound in their well-being and resourcefulness. And then the program brings together various techniques like integration of approaches, consonance therapy, somatic experiencing, compassionate inquiry, BBTRS, mindfulness, body practices, etc. We use group work, we use breathing techniques, we use body practices, as I said, so that the participants can recover their internal and mental and physical resources. Over the 3 years, we've had 25 such retreats for more than 400 participants. In 2025, we are planning to hold 5 such retreats for veterans and their family members. I would like to emphasize that today we are launching a screening of a video on how people recover after such programs. It was videotaped during the previous retreat, and once the presentation is over, I will share the links to videos in Ukrainian and in English. Next, now we appreciate that we can't bring together all the people who need such programs. So for those who cannot participate physically, participate personally, an online course was developed, designed and then developed. It is called the ABC of Self-Regulation. It includes 12 thematic sessions. We've had 7 iterations of this course so far, and it provides true support to those who are looking for ways to cope with their problems, to face the challenges of time, and to self-help. Here, the participants can master the techniques of stress regulation. They do breathing techniques. They work in small groups. They learn about relaxation methods. And then they can integrate all of those in their life, everyday life. So we catered to more than 700 participants. They can now understand their body and their mind. They can feel what their body wants and respond to those needs. And they do something that squeezes out the pain, the bad feelings, the dissociative emotions, etc. One should be fully aware or self-aware, so to say, understand what's going on in your body and in your mind, and upon mastering those skills, you will be in a better position to help others. The third area or another tool in our work is individual psychotherapy.
Short.
Yeah, I only need 2 minutes, thank you. So individual psychotherapy, it leans on a unique experience of trauma and needs of every individual. Unlike the retreats and online courses, this individual approach is personalized. It enables an individual to explore and resolve individual issues, reinterpret and integrate the traumatic traumatic experience. And over these years, we offered 1,138 sessions. Our team are sure that resilience is essential in supporting individuals and ensuring the social cohesion in communities. So it is what the veterans, what the active duty military personnel and their families need alike. So it is our duty to provide people with effective and efficient tools so that they can find their own fulcrum, so to say, and we thus support them in the hard days of the military service and life in the times of war. So we will continue doing that in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Should you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much, Yuri, and thank you to Ahalar for this fantastic work. I'm always so impressed by the fact that you can use so much creativity in a situation so grim as war. And we have seen how multidisciplinary work really folds itself out in this work. Thank you so much. I'm now very pleased to introduce Natalia Umerenkova. She's from an NGO called Women's Power of Ukraine. And this is an organization that has been working for many years with the veterans and soldiers. And I know that they have recently also made a hotline that has been developed. And I know also that one of the aims of the organization is to contribute to help the military families to have good relations and be respected, not only in words, but also in actions. So Natalia, you can enter your first slide and please take the floor. And you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Дякую. Дякую, пані Норо, за представлення.
Thanks a lot, Nora, for the kind introduction. I would also like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to share our experience, to learn how much is being done to support our defenders and their families. It is very useful to see that our community is very broad and multidisciplinary. And today I will be speaking about what we need to do more and better in order to support families of the veterans and active duty military personnel. It seems that a lot is being done, but the challenges are so great that we have to try even harder. Can you see my presentation? Thank you. You can. In my presentation, I would like to share the experience of our NGO, which in cooperation with the Institute for Social and Political Psychology, that I also am a member of, developed some methodological approaches to the support to the families of soldiers and veterans. And we in the Institute also conduct research in the area of mental health and psychosocial support to the veterans and their families. Now, speaking about the organization itself, since 2014, we've been working to support the resilience and psychological well-being of Ukraine's defenders and their families. We've got very close contact with the armed forces, with other security and defense forces, with the National Guard of Ukraine. So since 2015, I would say, we've participated in events dedicated to the support of the military personnel. We go to their own units, we talk about their needs, we engage the the specialists that are dedicated in those units to the support of the military and their family members. Now we've established a hotline, and Nora mentioned that this hotline provides psychological counseling and counseling on social matters to the members of the active duty military personnel. We've provided more than 13,000 such consultations. We also have group counseling for the wives and mothers of the active duty personnel. More than 3,000 women have been registered to participate in such groups, and there is huge demand for such services. In these groups, we ensure access for the therapy to women who live in Ukraine or who had to flee Ukraine to other countries. We work to improve their psychological mental health and to improve their relations with the active duty members of the armed forces. We use various types of psychotherapy so that people who need more assistance but they cannot get it through the telephone line can seek such support within the support groups. And we also have support groups for the children of the military members. In 2025 alone, more than 250 children have been registered to participate in such support groups for the children. So through supporting children, we thus support the entire family, their mothers or their fathers who are waiting for their other spouses to come back from the front line. So by helping children, we help their parents to cope with the challenges. And I would like to tell you about the trends that we've been observing of late. And these are our common, I would say, challenges. Whereas in 2022, we were just starting to deploy the support services. In 2024, we can see at least a twofold growth in the need and the met needs for such psychological counseling and psychosocial support. We can see that the number of calls doubled over 2 years. In 2025, we receive, say, 650 calls per month, whereas last year we received 350 up to 400. So, and these are unique calls. Sometimes people will call for the second or the third times, but most of them are the first callers, and they are people who need psychosocial support. And this lack of access to expert counseling, particularly counseling in crisis, is in great demand. An interesting trend, another interesting trend that I would like to share with you is as follows. We, an organization that developed its own support methodology based on the research conducted by the Institute of Social and Political Psychology prior to 2022, now see how important it is to provide consultations on social matters as well, because people are disoriented because they are in distress, and we have psychologists on our hotline, but they also provide social counseling. What is it about? It's not only giving the referral advice, for example, but it is also addressing some persons actually disillusion or loss loss, when people don't, or disorientation, where they don't know what to do with their matter at hand. And we see that psychological counseling grows in the share of such calls, but social matters matter as well. And we have to be prepared to provide both types of counseling. So speaking about the families of the military, we should talk about all categories of such families, and they all have different challenges and issues. When a man or a woman joins the armed forces, it is the international model of deployment cycle. So that's a part of the NATO allies standards. And in our case, we adjusted it to our reality. And when we speak about the challenges that we have to take on board and counseling that we have to provide, we have to work at all of those stages of this cycle. There are categories of the families of people who are just are conscripted, and again, they are disoriented as well as their family members. They don't know what to do if they can't call their family members who are conscripted. They don't know how to act instead of the second spouse when mother has to act as mother and father, and they don't know where to seek assistance. So that's where all spheres of experts should be engaged, from the military units and from the mental health institutions. And if you look at to the right,
загиблих, полонених військових і поранених, і також складно поранених.
There are different groups of the military wounded and heavily wounded reported missing, and those different groups have, and their families have to rely on different services. If we deal with ambiguous laws, undetermined laws, that would imply long-term support and the long-term assistance. So this slide represents challenges and needs and also requirements, and that those are the key issues that any professional community is dealing with. However, I would like to mention the key points. We have to consider accessibility of assistance. Assistance should follow those who need it, and we need to rely on psychological counseling, but communities at the same time lack professionals who could provide such counseling and assistance. The military, when serving not at the front line, at the direct hostilities, and those who are deployed close to the areas of hostilities, they should have access to treatment and assistance, including telemedicine, and it should be provided on a regular basis in a sustainable fashion. It seems to me that we all, dear colleagues, have to communicate across different platforms. We have to start assisting the military while they are still serving in the army before they become veterans. In this way, we will be able to provide timely assistance where it is most needed, and it would be much more efficient if we compare such preventive approach to the approach when we help the veterans with the challenges that have become acute. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will share my presentation with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zatali, for this very strong and interesting presentation. It feels very awkward to stop such an important presentation, but thank you for your work and really good continuation. Even if the war stops, and I hope it does soon, the work you're doing, the veterans' work, is something which is long-lasting. It's not something which is easily done. So thank you so much again. I'm now also very happy to announce the next speaker. That is Olga Kuharuk, and she is from, she's head of Aspici. She is a doctor of psychology and a senior researcher at the Institute for Social and Political Science. And she will share with us some very interesting experiences about how to help patients with mental problems through virtual reality. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And again, I have to remind you, 10 minutes, and I'll try to give you a little sign when the time is over. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Доброго дня, дякую за запрошення. Я Ольга Кухарук. Я не керівник Аспічі, я
Hello,
керівник
my
відділу.
name is Olga Kuharuk.
If you can use the full screen, the presentation mode, can you do that on your slides?
Yes, I can.
Fine.
You
Because
should see full screen. Do you?
not now.
Oh, so I believe we have like some technical issues.
Okay, but in case it doesn't work, we
Well,
have it
I'm
this
trying.
way.
Just now, I did full screen, so you should
Okay.
see full screen. You don't see.
Це не повний екран, ми бачимо.
Я зрозуміла, у мене просто повний. Я зараз бачу
Yes,
все,
we
це повний
can
люк.
see it
Так і
as
залишимо, напевно, просто щоб
not
не
full
застосовувати
screen,
час.
but I don't want to waste our time on
Отже,
addressing this technical issue. I am the head of the Department of Mental Health Researchers in SPG organization. Our company is a Ukrainian American startup which, since the outbreak of the full-scale invasion, reprogrammed its activities and started working in Ukraine in various sectors, documenting war crimes. And our flagship area of activity is Lumidify mental health support. Virtual reality is potentially very useful technology to provide psychological assistance and counseling. It had been used since 80s of the 20th century, and from year to year it acquires new functionality and the new possibilities are being created to introduce VR in mental health support. VR enables us to produce an environment which we want to create, and also it allows us to scale up or scale down different conditions, and considering the emotional state of those people we are working with. VR is about interaction and interactivity, which boosts psychological influence. It seems to me that your presentation is not fully seen on the screen. Now it should be okay, but maybe this is
It's fine. It's fine. It's perfect. Go on.
На сьогодні Lumidify – це є веб-базована
Lumidify is a web-based program which we call assistant therapy. We need a little bit of internet and virtual reality headsets. And considering that so many people are war affected, we understand that the virtual reality assistant should work with the support of professionals, not just using VR headset, but also support of a professional. And inquiries which we are getting are regarding cognitive disorders following traumatic experiences and chronic stresses and PTSD, apathy, and the pain management, and it works to help stigma and negative attitude. Also, it helps to address such situations when people in our program is very helpful when people experience hyperarousal and hypervigilance, post-traumatic hypervigilance, and a very high degree of sensitivity towards stress situations. There are very many programs that are based on virtual reality. However, in Ukraine, we have to remember our specifics. And our approach, which is a trauma-sensitive approach, is such that when an individual is exhausted by war, we can assume that any stimulus can induce any reaction, such as anxiety or hypervigilance, trauma sensitive, and hence we have to consider possible reactions in different stress situations, and we have to use evidence-based approach and ultimately maximize all the functionality of the virtual reality. We have to be flexible in our approach and be inclusive. Therefore, as of now, one of the key specifics is a library. We have about 50 different practices available to our clients. We have flexible formats. We may offer individual consultations or group consultations. And group counseling, and also we have the possibility to incentivize inclusion and involving other people and to reduce the stigma. Those are all the great advantages of using VR in mental health sector. We work to build stress resilience, especially for the military that simulate the first battle, and also we work on cognitive skills such as resource management practices, stabilization practices, mindfulness, and for people who find themselves in the condition of intensive exhaustion, we offer some experiences of visiting different places in virtual reality, and we offer VR-based technology in the hospitals, in the clinics that work with veterans for both long-term treatment programs and short-term treatment programs. So we try to create a program that would be flexible enough and to make sure we can adapt it to different situations. We have a team that consists of psychologists.
You're running in for conclusion, I hope. Yes?
Yeah, it's the last
Good.
one.
Thank you.
Працюємо в
We are working in the military units, at the stabilization centers, in the training units, and we cover about 50 military units, and we have the training component. We have rehabilitation programs. I have told about that, and we have published a study that shows the effect of our VR-based treatment programs. So we conduct research to confirm and further justify our development. We conducted research with Invincible mother organization, and as a result of various challenges, we have issues with gathering feedback in some cases. We conducted research together with the Ukrainian Catholic University in order to study how VR can be used to treat healthy people. I hope I will be able to present more at the following sessions. Thank you very much.
Yes, I really do so, because this was so intriguing. I would like to hear a lot more. I haven't heard about this in detail before, so I was really thrilled, and I have a lot of questions. So at some point, it would be good to be able to share them with you. So thank you so much again, Olga. And I'm now happy to introduce Victoria Gorbunova. She's a fellow and a postdoctoral researcher at the Luxembourg University, and she's also Doctor of Science and a psychotherapist, and has been working with different kinds of therapies, and will now present to us something very intriguing in this context also, the reconsolidation of traumatic memories protocol, used as the RTM protocol in war-affected Ukraine. So welcome to this table. We have, again, unfortunately, only 10 minutes. Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will try to be as quick as possible. Дякую, друзі, за можливість,
Thank you, dear friends, for this opportunity to share with our findings, results of our work. Our small Ukrainian team is working on this topic. What I will present, what is included in the slides will be a little bit different from what I'm going to tell you. RTM protocol and what we do with regard to war-affected population in Ukraine. I'm going to tell you more. Research and recognition project since the early days of the full-scale Russian invasion, we started working in this area. There are two institutions in the world that work in this area as of now, and one of them is involved in the training programs. A group of Ukrainian professionals was trained how to work in using this methodology, RTM, thanks to goodwill of our American colleagues that wanted to support us and provide us with the tool that would enable us to work with trauma in an effective way. This RTM protocol is a well-structured method. It is not a classical psychotherapy. This is a truly unique protocol, a well-structured method that consists of 89 steps or 89 lines, and the professional providing service to his or her patient takes him or her throughout these 89 lines in using visual formats, and in this way they work on a traumatic event and to create experience free from stress, to counter re-traumatization. And in this way we bring the patient closer to this traumatizing event, enabling the patient to relive this experience and trying to transform this event in his or her imagination and trying to acquire control over this traumatizing experience, not changing the experience, but trying to transform the memory of this experience. If we consider neurological studies, we have a lot of neurological studies that are being conducted In fact, we are striving to calm down this experience. And we do it through addressing almond-shaped gland. And physiologically, we conduct this work in a way that physiologically it becomes a transformation that the patient can feel. It belongs to the first-line methods of treating post-traumatic stress disorders such as EMDR and the other methods. You, as a professional, you conduct 3 to 5 sessions with one cycle of sleep between this session. And an individual you are working with does not need to disclose all the details of this stressful situation.
In April 2022, we trained the first Ukrainian team of experts because at that time we didn't have a Ukraine language version of the protocol. So we trained the experts in English, and now we've got a very well verified and edited version of Ukrainian language version of this protocol. And we know that this Ukrainian language version works well. In July 2024, we had the Ukrainian RTM team that I have the honor of leading. It is comprised of the trainers and coaches because the training is very content specific and it engages many more experts than in our usual psychological or psychotherapy training, because you learn by doing, and every couple of trainees will be accompanied by a coach that will be providing support at every stage. So in May 2025, we had more than more than 117 clinicians that had been have been trained with the following supervision and certification, and many of them are psychologists from the armed forces and Navy of Ukraine that administer protocol working with active duty members of the armed forces and the veterans. Our RTM protocol does not require, unlike the classical cognitive behavioral therapy, that the event has to be completed and people should be feeling in safety and security. We work with acute conditions, acute states, and we can provide this assistance at the rehabilitation points where the military personnel, injured people, for example, have an opportunity to be rebalanced in their psychological and mental state. So the protocol is very well structured. So the first session can be started with one expert and the other can be continued by the other expert. So that's a great advantage, because sometimes when a person cannot get to a certain locality and support one and the same patient for a long time. So several differences between our approach and some other classical protocols. I can say that our protocol is effective with post-traumatic syndromes, with acute stress disorder, any situation when the amygdala is aroused, with social anxiety and some other states. It is also very useful to apply this protocol in surgeries where the military personnel have injuries and are recovering from those. Of course, there are a lot of obstacles that would not allow the psychologist to use the classical methods or techniques. For example, there are no special rooms for the sessions. There are certain nuances related to confidentialities, and we have found a way to administer our protocol even under such obstacles, under such conditions. So we can even work online, that is remotely, and we know how to address certain obstacles. In hospitals, we work with the medical personnel, with the nurses. They ensure that our work is confidential. Plainly speaking, they would not other people come into the room where the session is underway. So they help us with ensuring internet connectivity, finding some secure platform, because it is essential when it comes to, say, a military secret or other sensitive information. As I said, the protocol does not require that the entire traumatic event is described in detail, but this confidentiality is also very important. And we can use the formats that are usual in the military environment. For example, to start with a certain visual format, we use the military jargon or military vernacular. And there are a lot of other benefits or, say, advantages that we can show to adjust the procedure to the current conditions. So this protocol is part of the largest international guidelines on working with stress and acute states, and we have been supported by one of the clinical institutions. We will soon be doing this research comparing the efficacy of this protocol in the conditions of the hospital, then with outpatient hospital and in private practice. We are working on the animated version of the protocol for children that will perceive it as a game in their own imagination, and we hope to have even more opportunities for the development and for engagement of the mental health professionals. So we dream of training military psychologists who are in dire need of effective and efficient tools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. This is so interesting. And there's been a question whether you could give the full name of the RTM in the chat so that people can look it up and do some further studies on this very important
Yeah, of course. And I will put the links to the site and to all the research which were done for the
very
moment.
fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very good. And then you can mute yourself. And I will like to now invite Lesia Bondarenko. I'm very pleased to invite you as the next speaker. You're a clinical psychologist, trauma therapist, and also supervisor. And you will be talking about the experience from the Center of Mental Health and Rehabilitation for Veterans called Losa Palina. And you're also actually part of the Ministry of Health. And I've also read a long interview with you, and I know that you're working very hard in order for more to be done. You think that there's not enough to be done in this field. So I think you have a very fine position here to argue about the importance of expanding the work. And I know also that your center has recently been appointed the 7th Center of Excellence on this issue in the Ministry of Health. So we're looking very much forward to listen to you. Again, unfortunately, remind you 10 minutes, but the floor is yours.
Дуже дякую, дякую за запрошення.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. You know, I can be speaking about the Lisava Polyana Center for years on end, let alone hours. But I understand the time constraints. Now I'll try to share my screen with you.
Окей, має бути на весь екран.
Can you see it? Great, thank you.
І ми є державним закладом.
So we are a state-owned institution, Center for Mental Health and Rehabilitation of Veterans, called Lisava Polyana. We operate under the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, and when it comes to our philosophy and our mission, so I would say that it's about cherishing the dignity of being Ukrainian, and our mission is to provide the best services for the best people.
Так. І, відповідно, на сьогодні ми
So, as matters stand, we are the first institution, medical institution in Ukraine that specializes in treating psychotrauma, the consequences of mild traumatic brain injury, post-concussion syndrome, as well as providing assistance to individuals who've experienced captivity or torture.
Посттравматичний синдром, наслідки перебування в полоні та тортур. Такі стани нелегко визначити, нелегко підступитися до лікування, завоювати довіру. І саме головне – зізнатися в таких станах самому собі. Для цього просто необхідно побудувати і сформувати унікальний лікувальний простір, так званий терапевтичний простір, довіри, безпеки та сили, який дозволить побороти невидиме поранення та ефективно з ними працювати. Лісова поляна – саме такий простір, центр, який долає наслідки психотравмуючих подій. На сьогодні це єдиний медичний заклад в Україні, який, окрім класичного лікування, використовує інтегративний і комплексний підхід. І ми використовуємо кращі міжнародні практики і власний досвід з 2014 року. Травма змушує людину втратити віру в себе. Однак травма є унікальним досвідом, і при правильному опрацюванні до подолання наслідків травмуючих подій вона може стати потужним поштовхом до пошуку нових сенсів і до зростання особистості, посттравматичного зростання. Саме це і є філософією центру – побачити невидиме поранення та допомогти тим, хто захищає нас.
Початок роботи команди 2014.
The team started its operation back in 2014. We cater to patients from all over Ukraine. We work as this institution, as the Center for Veterans, and we've been in this status since 2019. We cater to over 3,500 patients every year. We've got 220 beds, and we provide rehabilitation course of 21 days. Now, given that we are the Center for Mental Health, and according to the stats available to us, 50% of our patients get individual psychotherapy, not only group sessions, but they also get individual consultations of psychologists. So we work with stress-related disorders with mild TBI as a result of concussion, and we work with individuals who have experienced captivity and torture, and these are both POWs and civilians. Why are we unique? We are because we practice a multimodal approach with a whole multidisciplinary team of experts comprising psychologists, neurologists, general practitioners, psychiatrists. We've got social workers who help with all of the social matters, and we are the only medical institution in the country, the state state-owned one that has got clinical case managers that are supporters or helpers for our patients who navigate them in all of the services, who accompany them if they have to go out for a certain service or examination. We've got a very powerful group of general practitioners and physical therapists, and now we also have a separate room for occupational therapists. So we keep developing, we never stop developing. Now, in our work, we use psychotherapeutic approaches that are evidence-based. It's trauma-focused CBT, cognitive processing therapy, prolonged exposure, EMDR, narrative exposure therapy, interpersonal therapy, and body-oriented therapy. Usually we integrate all of or some of those techniques depending on the needs of a patient. And now speaking about auxiliary techniques in psychological counseling, we use mindfulness, cognitive function management, neurofeedback. We also use virtual reality tools that Olga mentioned. We do have those goggles, and our patients enjoy those sessions a lot. So, and they also use such goggles to practice mindfulness. There was a question whether the VR goggles can be used with patients with concussion. We do that with a fairly good result, I would say. Okay. We also have certain types of group work like psychoeducational meetings, resource groups, peer-to-peer groups. Last year, we had 11 veterans who were trained to be peer-to-peer counselors, and now they train other waves of such veterans. We all have sensory enhanced yoga for veterans, and we also engage patients as peers oftentimes for them to be engaged all the time, not to stay idle in their wards, medical wards, I mean. We use additional recreational activities like art therapy, cinema screening, then canister therapy. We use buhurt as a very unusual type of activity, very much appreciated by the veterans, that prepares them for the participation in sports competitions, etc. So the more channels for the venting of their energy, the better, we think. Another area of our activities, I would say, would be the training platform. Within our center, we organize lots of trainings for medical professionals, for psychologists, training, development, and motivation of personnel programs, so that this practice would be disseminated within the professional community and can be applied elsewhere, not only in Kyiv region. We offer several training courses for the medical professionals so that, again, this experience can be then multiplied. And what I said at the very beginning, what we always emphasize in our activities to cherish the dignity of being Ukrainian, creating therapeutic atmosphere which is created by people for the people. So the rapport, the ambiance in the center is very friendly. So we also work with our own personnel to train them and to ensure their restoration and psychological support. Even though everyone does whatever he or she can, we try to make sure that people enjoying being and working there. And we are thus forming and cultivating a culture of responsibility for people's own health so that they ensure the post-traumatic growth. I think I've kept within the time constraints. Thank you very much.
You have, Lisa, despite the fact that I could hear that you could very well speak about this for a long time. So thank you so much. Again, I'm so impressed about both the creativity and the engagement that in all of this so important work. It gives a lot of hope. And I do think that with all these very interesting presentations, and we will still have 2 or 3, I will ask, first of all, the interpreters if it's okay if we go over time to 16:15 or 17:15 Ukraine time. I think we will be needing that also because we want the closing presentation by Beate Seift before we leave each other. So I will now want to introduce Anastasia Yarmolenko. She's from the European Anti-Corruption Initiative in Ukraine, and they have actually been working a lot since the war started on delivering medical supplies, clothing, technical equipment, etc., and really done some very, very important work in this context. But here she will speak about the challenges and the barriers to veterans' reintegration in Ukraine, mental and social obstacles to employment. The floor is yours, Anastasia, and again, 10 minutes, sorry, but that's the whole reality.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you for introducing me. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my experience and discuss the topics that we work with.
Can you please tell me if you can see my screen?
Yes, see it well. Thank you.
Дякую. Отже, якщо говорити саме Дякую. Якщо говорити саме
If we talk about
професійної реінтеграції ветеранів,
if we talk about challenges
сильні ветерани при працевлаштуванні, і власне з чим
we would like to discuss the challenges and the problems that veterans are faced with in Ukraine, and employers also are faced with challenges.
Коли повертають людей на робочі
And when veterans are coming back to their employers following demobilization, they are faced with many challenges. We have millions of veterans, and the number of veterans is growing. And that is why hiring veterans and the employment of veterans represents a new social project. Before 2022, we had it as a social challenge, but now it is becoming a widespread phenomenon, and of course, we appreciate the efforts of those people and that sacrificed their time and put a lot of efforts into the defense of the country. Many veterans report challenges in employment and search for work. And if we talk about employment, the level of employment is 1.7 times higher among veterans compared to other groups of population. But most veterans do not work at the job positions that correspond to their qualifications. Only 43% of veterans work at such positions. And earlier, before the beginning of the full-scale invasion, veterans were typically hired for the simplest jobs, and they were not ready to offer them better jobs. But the trends with what we see now, employers are not ready to offer jobs that correspond to qualification level of veterans. The Ministry for Veterans Affairs conducted a study and identified key barriers to employment of veterans. Key barriers are psychological, emotional conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder and disturbed sleep and depression. And very sad number, but only 3% of those people who feel symptoms of such disorders turn to professional help. If we talk about employment and how it actually prevents people from reintegrating in a smooth fashion, such conditions prevent them from focusing on what they do and cause problems with memory and emotional reaction to stress represents a problem and difficulty with emotional regulation of interpersonal relationships. If we talk about other challenges among veterans, the most frequently quoted is the loss of objective in life, searching for sense, and loss of community.
Що на службі все було досить просто, зрозуміло і наразі перенести це в цивільне життя.
The transfer of that into the civilian life is fairly challenging and difficult without external assistance. But these stereotypes, these fears and misconceptions are faced not only by the veterans, but also the employers. 57% of them express concerns about employing war veterans because they think that they will not be stable enough, that they will have difficulty adjusting to the situation, don't know how to treat them. They think that veterans will have difficulty adjusting to the corporate culture or to the working conditions. And oftentimes they are concerned over the potential conflicts between the demobilized military personnel and teams of people with no military experience whatsoever. So they can't understand how the military experience can be transferred into the civilian work experience, and they don't have enough resources for the post-traumatic growth, for people with disability or with other special needs. When it comes to the veterans themselves, their concerns are different. Most commonly, they would say that they are afraid lest they would be badly perceived or treated by their colleagues and supervisors, that they would feel discomfort in the new teams. They don't know how to apply their knowledge and skills in the civilian life and how to adjust their previous working experience with either physical injury or mental trauma, psychological trauma to the new workplace. And many said that they have had very unpleasant experience of talking to potential employers who misunderstood them, who asked them very strange questions, and they didn't know how to present their own experience, be it civilian or military. There's a huge gap in the skills transfer. For example, recognition of qualifications where the employers do not appreciate that the war veterans are qualified experts. They know how to work in the teams. And then there's the gap in forming skills, and sometimes there are gaps in history in the resumes because they are treated during the job interviews as similar to the civilian candidates, and they can't see the difference. And then there are communication barriers because the employers and other colleagues sometimes have difficulty knowing how to communicate, how to talk to the veterans. Then there are certain obstacles set by the system at large, in general. Some bureaucratic procedures and red tape when the employer thinks of taking a war veteran on board, then he or she has to fill in lots of forms, and there are various systems of providing social, psychological, and other types of support and welfare, and those services are oftentimes unacceptable or inattainable. So then the employer themselves have to adjust the workplace to the needs of the people with disabilities, including war veterans. When it comes to the lack of adjustment of a work environment, we can see that there is a huge gap with the adjustment of workplaces to the people with disabilities, with mild disabilities, for example, then very inflexible work hours, then lack of modification of their systems to meet the needs of the people with disabilities. Then they have to work with the expectations. They have to manage expectations of the candidates. Oftentimes, they are quite non-realistic, and they will opt only for
Anastasia?
Yeah, I'm going to.
yeah, for the leading positions, for the executive positions, they are sometimes unprepared to do the upskilling training course or retraining course. So the anti-corruption bodies and other private businesses are now trying to introduce the comprehensive model of support to veterans. Oftentimes, the veteran managers would be introduced as a position, then special work processes or workflows are being developed. Then there are processes for the adaptation of veterans and the work places for the needs of the veterans with a systemic approach within various professional communities. So we believe that long-term coaching and mentorship is something that should be introduced as well. Yeah, I've told you about these systems of reintegration. We support the development of the specialized training, then coaching and mentoring programs, and that helps to engage more veterans into organizations and get them as a very able workforce. And in the future, we would like to see a centralized service for the veterans' employment within the state employment service that would cater specifically to veterans and would be effective and relevant to their needs. We believe that the national certification program should be introduced for the organizations and certain jobs, and certain standardized frameworks should be for the conversion of qualification from the military skills to the civilian skills.
Thank you.
Yeah, and training of more experts in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. This is so challenging, and I think what you're talking about is so much a question of attitude, also attitude and attitude modification. And I think that your program really has a lot to contribute to all other places in the world that have been struggling with war. And the fact that you are specializing and looking into war veterans, disability issues, makes this extremely relevant, I think, on an international level. So thank you so much for your words. And again, I feel terrible to stop you all. But now I'm happy to introduce to you Alexander Karchenko, who will be, he's a director of the Veteran Development Center, and your director, of the Veteran Center, Doctor of Psychological Sciences, military psychologist, captain of the armed forces in Ukraine. So you have been, we have a lot of experience within this, yourself a veteran of the Russian-Ukraine war, and your topic is Rehabilitation and Development Program, Veterans Hata, House for Veterans and their family members. And the center is linked to Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv, which is a very big
Чи мене
pleasure
чутно і чи видно мою презентацію?
for us since we have collaborated with that university, University of Oslo and Taras Shevchenko. So the floor is yours.
Я ще питаю, ви мене
Can you hear my presentation? Can you hear me? Can you see my presentation?
We can see your presentation. It would be good if you could take full screen, but not necessary, but we hear you well. Thank you. So the floor is yours. 10 minutes. You have actually more, so I will give you 12 minutes and then I will try to stop you and then I will move to the last. Thank you. Welcome.
Добре, дякую. Дійсно, я є
Okay, thank you. I am indeed the war veteran. I participated in the Russo-Ukrainian war. Not only did I fight there, but I also conducted research, and now I defended my doctorate thesis, and I've got a certain understanding of how to best work with the veterans. So I would like to introduce to you this project called Veterans Hut. It caters to the veterans who return from the front line. Most of them go through the medical rehabilitation, of course, but then they should be very useful members of the society. And this approach becomes very Ukraine-centric and veteran-centric. And I would say that the civilians do not always properly perceive what makes Ukraine Ukraine-centered. And the veterans of the Russo-Ukrainian war, in their mental state and psychological state, are a bit different from those veterans that were used as the target audience in the previous military psychological research. So now we would focus on ethical values, and the veterans of the Russo-Ukrainian war are a bit different when they return from the war, right? They share other values. They understand the life differently when they meet with the society that does not want to change, does not want to integrate these new values. And thus, there is a conflict. And our project aims to address this conflict. So we intake people who were released from hospital or who were decommissioned from the armed forces, and we work with them to rehabilitate, and it aims for the post-traumatic growth and development. It's a whole set of various activities, including psychological sessions, individual and group ones, art therapy. And at the very end of this work, over these 3 months, we also encourage people to enter the master degree program. And there are 2 criteria here for the candidates. First, it's the experience, their war experience, and those are either the veterans themselves or members of their families, like wives or those who has this experience of waiting for the active duty military personnel. And then the next criterion would be the bachelor degree, right? They should have a bachelor degree in any sector, in any sphere. So then they will have to sit exams and enter the master program
I have to
for
interrupt you.
psychology. Sorry.
I have to interrupt you for a moment because I see that there are a lot of slides, but I have only seen the first slide. So I think there must be something wrong. If the presentator has forgot to move or if his collaborator
я вже переключаю, мабуть, у вас воно не переключається, так? Тому що я вже переключаю.
I'm trying to change the slides, but you can't see it, can you?
Well, if it's please let me know, Yuri, is it only me or is it now? Yes, now we see the others. Thank you.
Добре.
I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay, good. Now you see it. So the goal of our program is to create conditions for both practical application of the acquired knowledge by the veterans and their family members and to develop practical professional competences in providing psychological counseling to veterans and their families. Thus, bear with me a minute. So in the course of this training, our master students get experience of working in the mode of peer-to-peer. Then they also have got the client's experience because they work with a supervisor. And then they have this counseling practice.
Following the completion of their master studies and once they receive a MA diploma, we provide 9 months internship to them, which is similar to students of public health internship, extensive internship. Graduates of our program get employment and get supervised by their supervisors when they begin their new employment. Psychology of a veteran who comes to see a psychologist, if they come and establish contact with the between the psychologist, professional psychologist and the veteran, the first contact is of paramount importance. And they say that often it determines the further communication and support. I know that it's very essential in such mental health support, because if the first contact does not work out well, it doesn't go anywhere. If you talk about veterans who have prior psychological experience, such contact would work much better, and productive work will begin. If we take 2 years of our activities,
проходить через освіту в магістратуру,
If somebody
потім
undergoes
після
this
магістратури
training
з
and
психології зараз
master
не
degree,
вчиться, це може
pursues a
бути
master
якийсь інший
degree in
напрямок, право,
psychology,
може бути все що завгодно. Але зараз просто дуже потрібні саме психологи.
As of now, psychologists are in great demand. We need the people with MA education, MA diploma in psychology. And
Мирне життя вже як спеціаліст-психолог і
And if they begin their career as a psychologist, professional psychologist, we have to keep in mind that somebody may be traumatized, may have problems with amputations. But if they have a rational approach, if they prioritize their mental health and their mental psychological well-being, they should be able to work as a professional psychologist for a long time. And here, it makes no difference if a person underwent some traumatizing experience or not. If they manage themselves well, they can become professional psychologists. And in this way, I would like to explain that we recruit 50% veterans men and 50% women, typically family members. If we combine such veterans with experience and their family members, women with such experience, if they work together, they undergo training in psychology. We have a couple where a man used to work as a video cameraman on television and his wife worked as a doctor before the full-scale invasion. And then when it was the first year of the program and our participants that joined our program at the beginning of academic year, and soon they will obtain diploma of a professional psychologist. And now we are enrolling the third wave of new students.
2 minutes, Alexander.
Sorry. Окей. Вони працюють з тими, хто прийшов на третю хвилю. Ми починаємо, повторюю, з рівнем, потім особистий клієнтський досвід, і потім вже досвід консультативний.
We begin with initial experience of participation in consultation and then providing consultations. And then we do cross-cutting review and monitoring. And also we use interactive methodologies in our work. And I would like to show you those who are second-year students of master program, wife and the husband, doctor and video cameraman.
So the man has just returned from the front line. His wife is a social worker and a trainer. And the third couple, the wife is a psychologist and a manager, but she hasn't got yet practice work as a psychologist. And her husband used to be the barista, but now he decided to work as a psychologist because he has got a bachelor degree as a designer. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that I've kept within the time limits.
Oh yes, you kept within the time limit, and even you were robbed for some minutes even.
Може питання якісь?
But thank you so much. I think
може якісь питання будуть.
Should you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Wonderful. I'm sure that people will include these in the chat, and we will try also to reply in the aftermath of this. But thank you again for this presentation. It is again so impressive how you can do it. And it was nice to see some of the cases and the families you've been actively working with. And also the overview of all the methods and approaches you are applying is amazing. So thank you so much again. I will now say thank you for my moderating at this point and hand the floor over to Beate Seibt, who is a professor at the psychology department and very much the driving force in Norway for this seminar. So she will conclude today and probably have some prospects and ideas for the future. Beate, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nora. I know we are already running over time, so I hope I'll make this short. So to wrap up this session, I want to first reiterate why we are here today. So our goal as the organizing team was to provide a learning and network platform for all people working with psychosocial support of veterans, with their communities and with families of military personnel, including active military, veterans, prisoners of war, and fallen soldiers. So today we learned a lot about all the great psychosocial support already in place. These presentations have been very inspiring to me. Thank you so much to all the speakers and the people behind these initiatives. Our Delphi round is a companion initiative to get a sense of what is missing, the known gaps, and also taking a guess at the unknown gaps. We therefore ask you to participate in the Delphi panel if you work in this area. You will find a link in the email invitation and on the event page at University of Oslo. Based on what we've heard today and on the findings from the Delphi panel, our group is planning to organize follow-up webinars focused on skill building, mutual learning, research, and planning cooperation projects. We will also look into expanding topics we have just touched upon today, such as working with communities, a topic that Anastasia Yarmolenko walked us through today. We have to forge the path as we walk, and I say this because I think this is very much a European challenge. There is a lot to learn from the experiences in the US and in Norway, but there are also unique challenges for Ukraine. Olga Hobanyova mentioned the challenges of prisoners of war return, and a recent report by Amnesty Ukraine shows how much trauma these prisoners have suffered at Russian prisons. Yuri Uzovich mentioned 6 challenges, which are often compounding the combat-related trauma. And unlike US and Norway, Ukraine is a country under attack. And one consequence of this is displacement, a huge amount of displacement, which obviously compounds the trauma from combat related. Another consequence is the frequent own and ongoing trauma of helpers, as mentioned by Jim Martin in the chat. Natalia Umarenkova and Arnstein Hestnes specifically mentioned the necessity of early intervention. So we therefore also want to work fast and provide timely help. Before giving my thanks, I would like to bring the attention back to veterans. To do so, I had a chat yesterday with ChatGPT, and we came up with this vision of a successful reintegration work. Now it remains for me to thank everyone who contributed to this event and made it possible. My heartfelt thanks go to all the speakers today: Olga Hobanyova, Arnstein Hestnes, Mike Baskin, Yuri Uzovich, Natalia Umarenkova, Olya Kucharuk, Victoria Gorbunova, Lesia Bondarenko, Anastasia Yarmolenko, and Alexander Tkachenko, our wonderful moderators, Sergei Burov and Nura Sveos, the organizing team, Irina Kubeladze, Yuri Uzovic, Yuri Trofimenko, Lessim, and Elizabeth Langdal. Our interpreters, Irina Kovalenko and Irina Inozemtseva. And our co-hosts and translators, Anna Fedina and Elisaveta Chernova, and to you, our audience, for your passionate and compassionate engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bertha, and thank you for all of you. And we will just look into the pages and we will stay in touch. So thank you so much.
Дякую вам.